di Eni Live e le soluzioni di plenitude con Eni. Hai tutta l'energia che ti serve. Da energie diverse, un'energia unica.
Qui è ora. Qui è dove conoscere significa confrontarsi con le sfide della contemporaneità, ascoltare le nuove generazioni da accogliere nel tempo presente. Ora, Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. Visita il sito unicat.it.
Vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Tra i servizi di mobilità di Eni Live e le soluzioni di plenitude con Eni hai tutta l'energia che ti serve. Da energie diverse, un'energia unica.
Qui è ora. Qui è dove conoscere significa confrontarsi con le sfide della contemporaneità, ascoltare le nuove generazioni da accogliere nel tempo presente. Ora, Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. Visita il sito unicat.it.
umiltà e con fiducia permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
La tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Civiltà dell'amore. Fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buongiorno.
Good morning and welcome to this session. Thank you.
Benvenuti.
Welcome to all those connected online, social media and artificial intelligence. No screen needed to grow smart. What is the origin of this session? Well, there are some considerations we made. First of all, the devices, the so-called smart devices, are now omnipresent in our lives and our children's lives. And many of us, especially young people, use social networks. And thirdly, much of the content that we see, read, and buy are mediated by what we call artificial intelligence. So we group together all these elements, considering that the digital environment is the content, is the container, and artificial intelligence is what moderates and selects the content. So the integration between these two factors, the digital device and the algorithm moderating and selecting the digital content, posed some questions to us. And we considered them, and we want to address them with some of the guests that I'm going to introduce. I'll start with Mr. Alberto Pellai. Alberto Pellai is a physician and psychotherapist of developmental psychology, and he got the silver medal for public health care. He wrote many bestsellers for educators, young people, and he wrote so many books, and I will cite just the one that my wife loves, that is Allenare alla Vita by Mondadori. And then Mr. Luca Botturi. Luca Botturi is professor of media and education at the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Southern Switzerland in Locarno. He deals with the media literacy, digital competence, and media-based learning. He is also a writer, and in particular, he wrote the trilogy of the Urbe, with 3 science fiction novels exploring the relationship between technology, freedom, and desire. Thank you, Luca, for being here with us. And then Maryanne Wolf, who is not present here with us, but she will answer to the questions that we mentioned before. She's a renowned scientist of neurosciences, and she teaches at the UCLA in California. In 2020, Pope Francis appointed her ordinary member of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Thank you very much, Maryanne Wolf, though she's not here with us. And then I am also present here with no merits. I am Fabio Mercorio. I'm professor of AI and data science at the University of Milan Bicocca. I didn't write any book, and I had no appointment by the Pope. Let's start saying this. So I have no real merit to be here, but I'll try to manage to introduce this session. And we decided to divide this session into 2 parts. In the first part, the questions will be directed towards to understand what we mean when we talk about digital, artificial intelligence, and children's development. And then in the second part, we'll try to focus on some aspects of educational responsibility. We don't want to propose a manual of instructions, but we want to address some elements that change so fast and so rapidly to make people more aware of what they can do in practical terms in their daily life. That's the idea behind this session. So the first question is for Alberto. Alberto, the question is, in your experience, what happens to young people in interacting with screens, and what are the cognitive processes that are activated? Very well. First of all, good morning to everyone. And it is a great honor to be here to speak to so many people. And I hope that there are many parents, many teachers, many educators, and members of that community, because the challenge of technology and life virtualization in the developmental age is a great, great challenge. And we are at a moment when we have to decide what kind of evolution we want to give to this challenge. Up until 10 years ago, there was a lot of techno-enthusiasm, so a lot of acceleration was prompted into the presence of digital media among small kids, and with no criteria, really. And it's the first time when there is a technological innovation that we didn't pose any question about when it is appropriate to introduce digital technologies in the life of children. Consider cars. Over the last 50 years, cars have become more and more safer and safer, but we never thought about anticipating the minimum age to give access to a car to young people. We're not ready to give keys to 11, 12-year-old people. We wait up until 18 years of age because that's the idea of a developed cognitive condition, because it is something really complex, moving a car along a road where there's other people doing the same, and it requires a number of integrating factors and functions, comprehensive vision, the issue of safety, the calculation of the speed of braking. So there's all these things that we have to do at the same time and that the cognitive brain have to process. But all of a sudden, we took children of 8, 9 years of age. We gave them very complex tools that not even a 30-year-old person is able to manage in their life. And we gave them free access. In fact, we speeded it up in some of the experiences in children's lives. In many schools, having a smartphone today is a prerequisite. Maybe it was a prerequisite. Now things are changing maybe, but to fulfill some didactic activities. If I used the metaphor of the car, it's like taking a kid on a go-kart and putting the kid on a motorway with 4 lanes where there's big trucks, and hoping that the drivers of those trucks can manage their driving so that they can protect the minors driving their go-kart. Well, things didn't go this way. After the big enthusiasm at the beginning, we are collecting a lot of research data. It would be interesting for you to enter a big research database to be aware of the number of studies telling us that early digitalization in children's life have provided advantages in their well-being, but there's a lot of research that is also addressing the collateral effects and the damages involved. If you put these two types of research on a scale, you will see that the amount of research on undesired effect is quite extensive. There's a number of information I want to give you. One is about mental health. From 2012, all indicators of mental health has been worsening every year. After 30 years where their prevalence and incidence were quite stable. In 30 years, there's no malaise, there's no problems with growth, but in 2012, this malaise is increasing. In 2013, it grows even more. In 2014, even more. So this growing curve of malaise in developmental age has never stopped. Jonathan and I wrote a bestseller called The Anxious Generation that will be published in Italy in September. Says that the 3 years before 2012, in the world, these things took place. The mobile phones turned into smartphones. So the black box that before was used to communicate and to send messages has become a real portable computer which can be used anytime in one's life. And now the things that people used to do before PC can now be done outside whenever we are. And so what we used to call and use as a mobile phone now is a portable computer. So we shifted from a communication tool to a connection and navigation tool. The second aspect is that the iPhone by Apple, we have now iPhone 4, which was the first smartphone distributed on a worldwide scale with a video camera. So we all started to take pictures of ourselves and to video record ourselves. And so we started to manage a second identity in addition to our real identity. And then we have our kids now managing 2 lives and 2 identities, the real life and the real identity, and the digital life and the digital identity. It will be wonderful to have the 2 integrated and complemented between each other, but those working in my sector as a psychotherapist of developmental age very often have to help parents that come to us and ask for help, because by sneaking into the smartphone of our kids, we realize that in our kids' online life, there are things that happen that are unthinkable to us. A mother told me, please help me, because you have no idea what kind of websites my little teddy kid checks and sees every afternoon. So she had this little teddy kid, a very loving creature, but she couldn't really understand how this kid could visit certain websites. And then the social media world has changed a lot. We moved from Facebook to Instagram, and Instagram has invented this thing. At any time, we can check and see not just posts, because posts remains forever, but the stories just remains 24 hours. So this generates compulsion, incredible compulsion to be always connected and be always alert and curious about the life of people with whom we will never have any real contact, just virtual contact, but they become a source of great influence. There are gurus in our children's lives that are now the influencers. And there are then the consequences, the impact in terms of health and well-being that are a few. If you have kids using personal smartphone and a social media profile, within the different factors that I will mention in a moment, you will see risk factors that are going to be present in your family. First, sleep deprivation. All research studies tell us that our kids are sleeping 1-2 hours less than the children of the same age 40, 30 years ago. That means losing 1 hour of sleep a week, and sleep is a great protection factor both for physical and mental health, and also for the learning potential of our kids in school. The second aspect is social deprivation. As never before, we have seen adolescents seeing that with the greatest desire is to stay closed in their room. In the past, that was a punishment. We used to tell our kids, as a punishment, you'll stay in your room. Now it's the opposite. We say, I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi off and you have to go out a couple of hours. So this tells us that adolescence has changed dramatically in the way people stay in the real world. The third aspect is attention fragmentation, with a lot of consequences in terms of learning cognitive potential. And finally, the fourth big element is addiction. Why do our kids at 1, 2, 3 a.m., instead of sleeping, sleep deprivation, tend to remain awake and to be connected? Why are their parents contacting us, physicians in this field, saying that there are kids that at 2, 3 a.m., the kids wake up to play Fortnite? There are pre-adolescent kids that don't feel like going out, going to recreational groups. They stop playing sports, and their their highest aspiration is to remain in their room to do things with their smartphone. That's addiction. And the addiction is something that becomes part of one's life because it is based on the dopamine, and that's the instant gratification element, because the more we produce that, the more the brain requires it to produce again. So the online world is all based on the activation of dopaminergic systems. Once you enter there, you are a kind of iron bar, and the digital world is a sort of magnet. So the iron cannot resist that, because that attraction is ready, is there, and it tells you, stay here, stay attached to me. And getting this into the life of a 9-year-old, 12-year-old kid is something that we as adults should learn to consider as one of the worst possible things to have in their life. So technology as a tool is welcome, but technology as an environment for living and for growing, unfortunately, has not given the results that we were looking for.
Grazie Alberto.
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you for the important hints. We will also have the opportunity to consider in the next presentation. We asked Maryanne Wolf what is the impact of early exposure to screens in developmental age. Maryanne is not here with us, and she answered our question, and there is the video.
To all of you at the Rimini Festival, what a pleasure. I only wish I could be with you. I've been asked to speak about some of my work that compares the life and the development of children who are on the screen and digital devices a great part of their day versus those children who are growing up with far less or even no digital exposure. And one of the questions that I've been asked by the festival leaders is to speak about what is actually going on for these children and whether it affects language development. A common assumption is that the more that the children are exposed to language in multiple ways, the better their language is, the more that they will learn. To a certain extent, that is true. But to a more specific example of what the research shows us, it is not true. Very specifically, there are now new studies, one of which is just finished, and that study took place in Singapore, in Canada, at McGill University, and at Harvard University. And what they did was look at the amount of digital exposure that a child had between 0 and 8 years, and what the correlation, the relationship is between the amount of digital exposure and brain development in the areas of attention, and also the relationship between the amount of digital exposures and the academic performance, the grades, how the children were doing in schools. This is a very important study for answering your question. And the results are very cautionary. What they say is that the more the child is exposed to digital devices, the less their academic performance is in schools. In other words, there seems to be a negative relationship between how much they are on screens and digital devices and how well they are doing in school. There is also a brain imaging component, and it looks as if what we will find over time is that the areas of attention in the frontal lobe areas of the child's brain, the less developed and connected they are in the same ways. And so we have both brain development indices and we have academic performance that leads us to this cautionary tale. Now, there's another piece of evidence that I want to bring forth, and that is also from the standpoint of brain development. Some of you may have read my book, Reader, Come Home, The Reading Brain in a Digital World. That's been translated in Italian by Vita and Pensiero, by my friend, Dr. Aurelio Maria Motola. And that book contains interesting evidence from my colleagues who are pediatric neurologists. And what they did was they looked at how the brain language areas, how those areas are developing and being activated when the child is on a digital device that gives them like an iPad, all the bells and whistles, versus just the auditory version versus a version that's like a parent reading to their child. And what they have found is what they call a Goldilocks effect. And the Goldilocks effect is that the least activated in the language regions is when the child is seeing the bells and whistles on an iPad version of the story. The best activation was when the caretakers are actually in an interactive way with the children. And so when we talk about language development, this work by John Hutton and Tsippi Horowitz-Krauss and others, they are showing that these language regions are much better activated when, and there's a series of studies on this, they're much better activated when the parents are reading to their child.
Mi permetto solo una sottolineatura.
I would like to emphasize one point because what we have just listened to is really interesting. Maryanne Wolf said it's not exposure to many languages, many words that can improve our learning in language. It's when somebody speaks to us. It's not when we listen to a screen, or YouTube, or it's not the same as when a parent tells us a story. This is a very important point about what we are considering in this session. I have stolen the role of moderator of chair to Fabio because I want to ask him a question. When we say exposure to screen, we think about social media, video games, and platforms. And these are tools that offer content. But today, contents in these containers are selected and decided by AI-based algorithm that we have with us permanently. So the question is, how do these algorithms work?
In pochi minuti provare.
So in very few minutes, we have to try and understand what are the algorithm criteria. There's a video because actually we cannot explain it. It is not important to read, but to watch. This is a video introduced by the algorithm, even though it was revised by artificial intelligence. This is a game, Breakout by Atari. Just imagine an artificial intelligence starting to work without knowing the rules. You have already understood how the game works, but not the AI. So the first thing that we have to understand is that the aim justifies the means, not for us, humans. The aim judges the means. This is the major difference between us and the machine. The machine learns little by little from experience. After a while, it plays very well, like the best one on the game. And the more it goes on, the better it gets in its task. The task is not to make a good game, but to make a score. That's the aim. So over the time, little by little, the algorithm learns that there are moves that are very profitable, that are very good, and others are less profitable, less good. And the best move is to put the ball on top by bouncing the ball and then standing still. So the maximum result with the minimum effort. And this is a criterion that we partially use in our life. So this algorithm is important because if you replace the ball with us, and we read posts, and we watch videos, and we listen to music and buy products, every time that the algorithm is telling us what to do, we are the ball making the score. The score is when we end the interaction. So basically, the machine is profiling us. We all know that. And it is difficult to get away from the profile, not because the machine is bad, but because the machine is designed to do what you like. Otherwise, it wouldn't recommend it to you. This is why, over the past few years, we have seen a sort of polarization as in contents that are more and more relevant up to being tailor-made for us. So this algorithm has evolved and underlies the digital recommendation. So, as Alberto said before, digital is not just a container, because today it is full with contents. Nokia 3310 was as digital as my smartphone, but it was a totally different story because it interacts with us. So artificial intelligence can learn from data. Inductive artificial intelligence. So, for example, we make images of the world and we teach the machine to recognize images. And now the machine recognizes the characteristic elements of each image. This is also applies to texts and videos. What is interesting is that learning comes through data. Since we have a lot of data, today learning is very effective. Then the machine is tested. Maybe you go on Google and then you write maybe black and white pictures of the sea, and you can find the relevant images because the machine has learned to recognize the images. Then there is a test phase. If there are teachers here, you know that at the exam you put a test on the topic that has been made in class, but not the exercise that has been made in class. So you give images of the same animals, but without the same moves. And in the end, you give a score. And when I told my children that this is a shark, my children said, yes, this is the whale shark, and it is very famous, and I had never seen it before. For years, we taught the schools on how to recognize and classify reality. Maybe you go on the internet, you went on the internet, and you tag, I'm not a robot, where you have to tag something. In that case, we do the same thing with machines. Over the past 2 years, something new has happened. As in, the machines have not just learned to classify objects, and this is a bottle and this is a glass, but they have learned to reproduce them, to generate them, hence generative AI. How can the machine regenerate? I'll give you an example. This is a real image. So we have taught machines to codify things, as in to build an internal representation of reality, which is not like our reality. Studies show and try to understand the representation of machines and how they codify. The machines codify that mushroom. As if I asked each one of you, how can you say that this is a bottle? The shape, the color, the size, the label. Each one of you can answer this question. And the regeneration is no longer creating something from scratch. It generates, not because it generates from scratch, but because it reproposes contents that have already been learned. So at some point, there is a regenerated image that comes out after codification. And ChatGPT is the pioneer of this regenerative AI. And how does it work? How does it work? How does this methodology work? We asked ChatGPT to rewrite, today it's a good day. Rewrite it as if Dante wrote it. So ChatGPT predicts word by word without understanding what it is doing. So rewrite it like Dante. And AI has been trained on the internet, has been studying the whole of the internet, and it starts to navigate the text near Dante states and generates likely words. Every time that is done, words are added to the previous words, and step by step the algorithm can generate the sentence. In the video you will see in a while that not based on what it has learned, but based on what it is likely to be closer to Dante's text, the AI will start writing a text just like Dante. Today, the sky is shown in its splendor by irradiating a light, making the soul joyful. So the good day for AI is the cliche is not a good day because you met someone or because you fell in love, but because it's good. There's good weather. We humans have different options to choose from. AI lives on likeliness and on the likelihood. Lives on the likelihood that once you get up, you maybe stumble and then you fall down. In some cases, when we ask AI something, we ask an artificial intelligence that has been trained on contents that have already been written, read, and seen. And we ask for a likely answer. But we have different options. Then Christians are a totally different category because they have certainties in life. So we cannot explain what AI is, but we can explain what makes us different from AI.
Riprendo il cappello del moderatore.
I'll follow up to what the facilitator, I will follow up as a facilitator. Now, second question. So with Alberto, Luca, and Maryanne, we have learned how digital contents work compared to humans. And now we're going to ask Luca. In the current world, it is clear that it is not possible to avoid to come to terms with the digital and what it implies. So, what are digital skills today? Thank you. We need to understand that screens always with us can generate a whole lot of situations that do not contribute to the wellness and health of young people and adults. But we're living in a digital world. Just look here, everything is controlled in a digital way in this room. We have to come to terms with that. It's a piece of our world. We cannot go back to a pre-digital age pretending that the digital does not exist, even because the digital world is not the smartphone and is not the apps, but it is many more things together. So let's start from an assumption. At some point, we eliminated the problem saying that the youth are digital natives and they've already been designed to do that. But that was a fake. I was born in the 1970s, and I wasn't told that I was born in the era of the engine and I could fail not pass a driving test because I was born in that time. No, that was not the point. No one is born pre-designed for its technological era. So what are the digital skills? What are we talking about? There are different models telling about and explaining the digital skills. I can give you two examples to make you understand. We can talk about digital safety, where you have the ability of using technologies in line with environmental protection in a sustainable way. What does that mean? It means that I, as a user of technology, I have to understand where it comes from, where the production cycle is sustainable, what happens if I'm using a smartphone every year and then I throw it away. There's a lot of technological waste today which cannot be recycled. There's different problems and different topics, but they have nothing to do with scrolling down very quickly on TikTok. But they have to do with the fact that I can think in a systemic way, thinking about the society, environment, work. So this is sustainable technology. Let's get another example. In the models, we always find we have to use technology in order to solve problems. Well, in that case, you need to have technical skills. You need to be to know how to use devices, but you have to combine problems to different solutions. You have to learn to design because, for example, a software enables you to manage volunteers, for example, here at the Rimini meeting, or maybe to make sure that there are always enough drugs in a hospital. There are many problems in corporate life, in production, in agriculture that can be solved with digital technologies. But once again, there's a skill that solving problems by using technology has very little to do with the skills of technology consumers. When we think about the digital world, you're just thinking about apps and smartphones. It is true, but this is just a subsector. All around it, there are many more things that are important and that we forget. And the need for professionals in this sector is enormous today. Not because we need Facebook programmers also, but because we need many more things. So, real digital skills are not the ones of consumers. It's not that you have to be able to download an app and make it work. Also, but this is not the point. There's a technological market pushing us to be compulsive consumers. Then there's another point. It's not that it is enough to be able to use the digital technologies, but also you have to have a critical thinking and you have to take a step back to interpret them, to understand them. Otherwise, this is the possibility. What can we do? Is there anything new that we can do? This is a different prospect. So I have a colleague who has a son that has just been to the Olympic Games. He was a swimmer. And I asked her about her child, and she tells me about his trainings. He's a professional swimmer. It's like if I said, yes, I'm also going to swim in the lake during the summer, but it's nothing to do with the Olympic Games. And this is the same thing. Digital skills, yes, but my son is very good because he's always on TikTok. But this has nothing to do with that. I mean, we're not preparing the youth to the future by giving them smartphones. This is not the point. Let's open up the horizons. When talking about digital technologies, there are also sensors governing something. And I met a person working on sensors for the controls in the pharmaceutical industry. This has nothing to do with the social media. And then there are the automatic software to pilot airplanes, or there are software to manage textile companies. There are many different technological skills. That is the real challenge. And this is where technology becomes absolutely important. It's as if in that case, we need to learn. Here there is a professional career. Here it's a real challenge. It becomes a job. Whereas we are concentrated just on the simple side, just on the surface, on the tip of the iceberg, which is the entertainment part. Just as if navigating in the digital world is the aim, what makes us digital citizens. This is not the case. let's forget about that. You have to go beyond the iceberg. So the real challenge is to learn those skills, because those skills make us protagonists in a world where the digital technologies are part and parcel of our experience.
Grazie, Luca.
Thank you, Luca. Let me add that digital skills are not just related to the fact that you have to be able to use smartphones and apps, but you have to understand what is behind it, especially when digital technologies evolve so rapidly that you don't have time to continue learning. So having So let's go to the second part. What are the educational responsibilities coming out of all that? So let's go back to Alberto now. Today, we have to put constraints and limits in the age for using digital technologies, especially in school. What do you think about it as far as your professional experience is concerned? I think that our mind requires to be specific in the educational model, as in I can educate children, which then become teenagers, by nurturing their minds with stimuli, experiences, and relations that are in line with the skills that those minds can understand. No one would make a 6-year-old child read The Betrothed, or no one would give Peppa Pig to read to an 18-year-old guy. So, every age has its own stimuli. So, what do we have to do now? We have to wonder how the mind is developed in the developmental age. Between the 9 and 14 years of age, children are very vulnerable and frail. With the online world. The online world is a major activator in the brain of the models that want to be gratified. This is the Pinocchio's dilemma. Geppetto tells Pinocchio, go to school. Pinocchio trusts Geppetto and goes out to go to school. Then there's somebody getting Pinocchio and saying, oh, it's very boring to go to school. Come with me and we'll go somewhere else to have fun. It would be nice for Pinocchio to have the skills to say, no, I need to go to school, not to go and have fun. But Pinocchio totally changes his mind all of a sudden. But if every day Pinocchio would meet that guy, then he wouldn't be educated. Now, take a 12-year-old guy who wants to do his maths, who wants to study maths, and he has a smartphone with him, and that app can be useful to do maths, to study maths. So the 12-year-old guy is going to use that app. But that app is inside a device sending a lot of different information that constantly is telling that child, here, you can have fun with me. So the 12-year-old guy should answer, no, I'm not interested in having fun now. To me now, it's more important to study maths. How many 12-year-old children can do that? Raise your hands. How many children of yours at 12 are more interested in studying maths than using smartphones? Many people come to me and ask for help, saying, when my child, since my child has been having for a night and a smartphone, it is very hard to make my child study and concentrate on doing math, for example. So a tsunami came about. And this is what you have been seeing in Inside Out 2. All of a sudden, the emotional thinking is accelerating, and that brain becomes hungry for gratifying experiences, sensation-seeking, pleasure. And they find it very hard to follow all those processes whereby they can mature their cognitive processes. And neurosciences have provided us with an enormous asset. Now we can look inside the brain and look at what happens inside the brain. And Maryanne Wolf said that everything happens in the prefrontal cortex, that area of the brain which is the control room of our success in life, which can fully mature between 18 and 22 years of age. What happens to a 12-year-old guy? It has an emotional brain, which goes very fast, and a cognitive brain, which should regulate the requests of the emotional brain, going very slow. So, what is the work for us adults? What is our task? Continue to channel, to give a direction to the emotional brain to aims which are not those of toyland, as in have fun, but are those of real life, as in educate yourself, train yourself, become an adult by learning what life is. Having an online world always available, okay, technologies are wonderful to learn, but when the tool is inside an environment and the environment is a toyland which is always open, then you are there and have to find the tools where you are constantly called to have fun in the toyland, which is much more attractive. So you are behaving the opposite way, and this is very difficult to manage. So even the research says, okay, take 3 groups of young people, do the same test. One group in a room where they don't have a smartphone, another group in a second room where they have a smartphone which is switched off on the table, and another group in a room with a smartphone on the table and switched on. They cannot interact, but the smartphone can send all the messages to the children doing the test. Then look at the final score of the same test, and you will find out that the best rate is for students who don't have a smartphone, not even as an object, they don't even have it there. The average score is for the student with a smartphone which is switched off, and the worst result is for the students who have the smartphone there. So our ministerial letter saying we have to have schools with no smartphones ever, not even in the bags, where smartphones are left just in front of the school and they can take it back at the end of the school day. And many people have been criticizing that. But there are 5 countries today which have adopted that regulation, as in Norway, Finland, Sweden, Great Britain, and France have school systems which are very advanced. They are very digital. But according to research evidence, they have decided that their students have to spend their school day without using a smartphone and without even having a smartphone in their pockets. I think that now we have to use the research that is available. If the research says that the smartphone can improve the life of our children, then okay. But if the research says that the smartphone can have a very strong impact on their learning and on their lifestyles and on the life training, and we have to be responsible for that, then we have to take a step back It is now time where either we understand what it means to use smartphones as a tool and take them away from the life of our children, or else at the next meeting in a few years, we'll have to say that we have lost the game.
Rubo ancora il cappellino a Fabio per un altro stimolo, perché
So I'll add to that. We talked about these algorithms, these platforms, but we have to ask ourselves another questions. Who is building them? Who is designing them? Why? What is the final goal? So to follow up what Alberto said, to me, well, you were talking about the tsunami on adolescents, on teenagers. And I also believe in this tsunami that is affecting all of us. So here you have some numbers. How many years have these technologies taken to achieve 50 million users? So airlines, automobiles, telephone, electricity, 46 years, credit cards, 28 years, television, ATMs, computers, mobile phones, internet, 7 months, Facebook, 4 months, 4 years, sorry, WeChat, 1 year, Pokemon Go, 19 days. So here you can see two things. First, these technologies are less and less important for our life. And then the speed. In 2008, there were no apps. It was a totally different technological era. And this speed has put us in a crisis because we're not enough ready and mature to use technologies in education, in work, in society, and in friendship. I'll be very short, but this is very important. This slide is very important. I believe that it is difficult for us to interpret things. Let's think about the different objects that we can create. IT is very nice because it can speed up and solve problems in an automatic way to give more time to humans to do something else. So the objects that we create can solve problems or needs in a clear way. Let's make a very simple game. What is this? What is it needed for? What is this? What is it needed for? Okay. What is this? What is it needed for? What is this? My child would say, a boom as a social. What is it needed for? Each one of you, to that question, would give a different answer. But with the glass, you immediately understand if you use it badly, the bad way, if you use it as a hammer, you would understand that I'm using the object in a bad way. But what about Facebook? Facebook wants to give people the power to build up a community and to make the world closer. This is related to an experience, to a judgment capacity that cannot be given to a platform. This is why I want to say that being prepared for that is very important. In order to use it, because it is a very complex. This is a meta tool, TikTok. Our mission is to inspire creativity and make people have fun. But how? Capturing and sharing the moments of the world on Instagram. This is also important. It is important to understand that the tool is a name in itself and that these objects are meta objects. I was telling that, and at some point in the audience, I saw somebody making a comment to a friend, and I said, okay, it was good for you that you made a comment, but why didn't you send it in my WhatsApp? This is because it's a different thing. Now, social media are a surrogate for friendship. We're too long here. I can tell you what the Pope said at the G7. That was the first Pope talking at the G7, and he talked about artificial intelligence. And he said, forgetting that artificial intelligence is not another human being, and that it cannot propose general principles. This error stems either from the profound need of human beings to find a stable form of companionship, or from a subconscious assumption, namely the assumptions that observations obtained by means of a calculated mechanisms are endowed with the qualities of unquestionable certainty and unquestionable universality. We want the truth. We want friendship, and we want truth. Even better if friendship is the truth. Given that to a social media is a methodological error. Therefore, from the standpoint of the truth, saying that a social media has to tell us what the truth is a methodological error. We're not saying that the object has to be neglected and has to be forgotten. IT is wonderful. I'm an IT man. But what I'm saying is that we have to rediscover how we have to act. We have to rediscover things, and we have to rediscover that some objects are too complex. We have to look for a meta-object. Sometimes objects have a desire, so we have to compare ourselves to what we expect from the object. So we asked Maryanne digital tools. They provide more attractive stimuli, what Alberto said before. What is the scientific evidence on this topic?
So one of the most important aspects that crosses the two questions that you gave me from the Rimini Secretariat concerns both the relationship about digital and language development and what parents can do. There are clear implications from this research that one of the best things parents can do is model reading, not model life on the smartphone. The smartphone has become ubiquitous in the lives of our children. The iPad has been ubiquitous. There are many problems, but two of the most important for parents and educators and those of us who prize literacy and what it helps develop in the individual's brain and language development and what it helps develop in the individual's life trajectory and society. So all of this that I'm going to be telling you is over the denominator of our desire for what is given by true deep literacy to the child, the society, and even to our species. So I want you to think about for yourselves that what is really going on in the life of our children, whether we're a parent or an educator or a policymaker, is the development of all these very important processes that I call deep reading, but that involve perspective taking, empathy, inference, critical thinking, and reflection. These deep reading processes take time. And what digital devices often do is cause the child or the young adult or us to read in a surface way. We read in a skimming fashion, we word browse, we are rapidly going through the surface of what is being read. And that does not allow time for the brain to really activate these very sophisticated language and cognitive and affective processes. So one of the, if you will, cautionary tales that I will say is that we are all wanting the deep reading skills for our children and ourselves and our society. And it is not that deep reading is impossible to do on a laptop. You and I have to do that many hours a day. But it is less likely to give us the time to process at these deeper levels when we are skimming on a laptop. And when we are talking about children, we're talking about the development of these deep reading processes. I have used the term a biliterate brain. And by that, I mean not to ever think this is a binary, that one is good, one is bad, technology is bad, print is good. No, 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 no. It is not a binary situation. It is a developmental way of in fact, forming digital wisdom and print wisdom, both of which leading to the growth and expansion of cognitive processes. At the same time, by giving the child print largely for the first 10 years, we're preserving the development of those deep reading processes. You can do both if we use wisdom on both sides of our mediums.
Grazie. Gli ultimi minuti.
Thank you. In the very last few minutes, I would like to ask Luca, what is the role of schools in digital education? What does it mean to digitize schools? Well, that's another important topic. I guess that there's many educators here. You can raise your hand, and I see many of you here. But I talk to parents, too, because this is a big challenge in digital education that must be addressed together. Otherwise, we won't win it. Schools have a fundamental role to play, and schools can do things that only they can do. The Goldilocks effect has been seen in many other research studies. There is an average point, which is the maximum effect. So what's that average point? I think that that's the point where technology retains its nature of tool, but it doesn't become something that can fill every mental space that we have. So the school must be a place able to get the young people to meet the real use of these tools, to use them as tool, as such, something that can be used to produce something good. So if we have to write a text, it is clear that having it in digital form instead of handwriting it can help me doing certain operations. Or maybe we can communicate with another school. We have to prepare a poster to be printed. There's many situations where digital tools can give us an extra help. But having spaces like this is the real challenge. We have to have them within the subjects in schools. On the other hand, we should try and preserve spaces where we can learn and nurture all those skills and competencies that technology tends to cover. Maryanne very well said, the question is not either one or another. We have to learn to read on a screen because it's part of our life, but also to be able to manage print text, paper text. So we have to cultivate some spaces where we can do these things. We are able to communicate in a chat room, but are we able to face an interview? Do we feel comfortable when we are with a group of friends, or do we want to stay in our room? Maybe it's more convenient to send a message, and that's it? Well, I think that schools can have a role in proposing good examples, situations where a good balance can be visible, can be touched. And taking smartphones away can be a really useful thing to do. Of course, all this is meaningful and can work if on the other side there's families that have a dialogue with schools and that propose the same criteria, maybe with different formulas and adjusted to the home setting. Otherwise, the school is the prison where smartphones cannot enter, well, a prison where things cannot enter, cannot escape, and at home, that's not the case. So then it wouldn't make sense. So many things with educational aspects, if there is no agreement between families and schools, things cannot be so easy. So what does that entail in a practical way? First of all, we should consider the spaces in school programs where this work can be done instead of sticking to old models, and also educating the trainers. It doesn't mean that people have to become IT experts, but we have to be aware of these topics. So maybe today a course of philosophy should also touch upon AI as a topic, because that's important, and the opportunity must be taken, absolutely. And the other thing is to digitize schools, and thinking about a school that can help us educate in digital skills doesn't mean that we have to fill it with devices and invest in hundreds of screens and devices. They can be useful, but that's not the end. The end is not to become just one more institutional consumer, in addition to being an individual consumer, but we have to be able to interpret and to be before technologies with a wide approach, with a wide view, to understand really the objectives that we want to share.
Grazie.
Thank you. Just a very short message to conclude by Maryanne, and then just 1 minute each for a takeaway message.
And so I want to leave you with a very hopeful note. I think we all share the desire for our children to be not only expanding all their skills digitally, but preserving the best of our processes that we have developed for more than 2,000 years. And I wish for you who are educators and parents to know that one of the simplest ways of beginning that in those first 5 years and then 10 years is to read to your child every night, not with a phone, giving them a bad example, but giving the example of the passing of your love and affection as it is conveyed through reading stories that take them everywhere and give their imagination, wherever they are, a chance to be 100 different characters and learn who others are. Thank you so much. Grazie mille. And I so hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Rimini meeting.
Alberto, your takeaway message. Well, the takeaway message can be this. We are the first generation of adult people and parents that have to grow children that are constantly intercepted by a system with great potential, which is what we have just talked about. But when it comes to our kids, they see a great potential, and they also ask themselves, how much money can you give me? Just like the cat and the wolf in Pinocchio's story. So if social networks, when looking at our children, just consider how much money they can get, the developmental age and childhood are being used in the worst possible way. Developmental age must be protected, supported, and made grown. Imagine a buffet with hamburgers, pizza, and French fries, and any type of sweets, and a wonderful corner with vegetables and fruits. You get a kid there, and you tell the kid, don't consider all the rest, because fruit and vegetables are only the things that will give you energy. How many kids will start eating carrots and courgettes? Well, I think we have to clear up that buffet and consider that all those systems delivering online things and social media content must feel and know that if a minor is being involved, they have to get the best and not the worst as an offer. Luca. Well, I think we are before a great challenge, and educators, as parents, as teachers, are becoming more and more aware. Maybe we got a little bit overwhelmed with the technology in the past few years. Now we got to the point that we want to decide which kind of shape we want to give to technologies. I think this challenge entails identifying real challenges that we want to propose. So we have to get these digital tools into relationship with other things. Our smartphones have the same technology that was used to get to the moon. So they are incredible tools, but they have to be connected to real challenges and saying, this is really worth it. And our kids have to see this worth in doing things with digital technologies. So that's the clear relationship between the tool and the ends. So what I mentioned before, the sky can be cleared up this way, and the real potential can be seen clearly. And that's the real nature of technology. Just a couple of words to close the session. And just drawing on what Alberto said, we are the first generation that is also teaching AI about our reality, which is only made up of 2 senses because it doesn't have touch, smell, and taste. So the fear I have for our young people with the technology is able to do much better the things that our kid could do. And that's a very fearful, that's a very threatening, because kids may feel not able to do things. Maybe one wants to draw and want to compose music. This is really serious because they can demotivate kids. And it's like this big buffet you talked about before, full of sweets and unhealthy food. Any parents would teach their kids to ride a bicycle, accompanying them, not just throwing them a bicycle. So we have to feel this responsibility to accompany our kids, considering to what extent they can be ready for the challenges, and also getting the big technological leaders to be aware of the fact that some contents must be safeguarded and protected for minors. And I would add, we have to be in a position to have clear judgment, because we don't know what the future AI will look like. 2 years ago, some years ago, we didn't have any app, and we were world champions. And now we have the apps, but the skills that we develop must be updated and constantly adjusted to their reality. Thank you so much. And remember that civilization cannot grow without culture. Dialogue and beauty are essential to life. This is a moment of dialogue and culture. So if you agree with that, you can donate, make a donation to the meeting. Thank you and enjoy your meal today.
civiltà dell'amore. fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Tra i servizi di mobilità di AnyLife e le soluzioni di plenitude, con Eni hai tutta l'energia che ti serve. Da energie diverse, un'energia unica.
Qui è ora. Qui è dove conoscere significa confrontarsi con le sfide della contemporaneità, ascoltare le nuove generazioni da accogliere nel tempo presente. Ora, Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. Visita il sito unicat.it.
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. Si è voltato improvvisamente la gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Tra i servizi di mobilità di Anylife e le soluzioni di plenitude con Eni hai tutta l'energia che ti serve. Da energie diverse, un'energia unica.
Qui è ora. Qui è dove conoscere significa confrontarsi con le sfide della contemporaneità, ascoltare le nuove generazioni da accogliere nel tempo presente. Ora, Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. Visita il sito unicat.it.
Vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?